2018 was the year of the roller coaster in the UK, as for the first time since 1994, we saw two major roller coasters opening in the same year. Those roller coasters were of course Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach and the Wicker Man at Alton Towers. And in today's video, which has been filmed over a number of weeks, we're going to be looking at the good and the bad of Icon and Wicker Man.
Ride operations on Icon. 2 words, bloody good. Very, very good. The staff on Icon I found.
Well, since it's been open, really, the ride operations, right, Icon I think have been fantastic. It's comfortably the best operated ride in the Pleasure Beach this season. And I think they've gone to other parks across Europe this year. It's been on a par or better than most of them as well. I think the team running the ride all season have made sure the trains have been going out time after time after time. We're here today, it's on a 3-train operation, and it's just, the queue just doesn't stop moving. Fantastic. It was at Europa Park the other week, and it's almost on par with their operations, I'd say.
Operations Icon have been fantastic. The staff are very, very good. The queue moves very quickly. Get on 3 trains. Absolutely fantastic. Days when I've been here, when it's needed 3 trains, it's been on 3 trains. It's been fantastic. So overall, really impressed by the operations.
I have no idea what kind of magic Mac or Blackpool have been using to make Icon, but I've never waited over 20 minutes for this thing, even on the opening weekends. I mean, the throughput is incredible. They keep firing trains out. I think they've really hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, even when the queue is at its longest, like it's coming out of the actual physical line, you're still waiting about 20 minutes until you're on, and I think it's madness, especially in the opening weekends. You should be waiting about 3 hours, 2 hours, but no. And it's great for re-rides for that, because literally you'll come off, hop in, and then within minutes you're back on again, and it's sick.
Operations have been pretty fantastic from what I've seen. You know, they've been pumping the trains out really quickly, so no fault at all there.
You're never queuing for very long. It's always continuously moving. I can't remember queuing for more than 20 minutes for this ride, even on a really busy day. And the dispatch times are really short. The staff in Icon have got that off to a fine tee. I know some people have said, oh, the queues are low because it's not very popular. Rubbish. I think it's the operations that mean the queue lines are small. Nothing to do with popularity or lack of popularity compared to Wicker Man.
Ride operations are absolutely fantastic on Icon. You can see I keep going to look over my shoulder because the queue moves that quickly on this. Yeah. And it's on 3 trains, absolutely eats through the queue.
For Icon, ride operations, absolutely 100% spot on. From the day it opened, well drilled, well planned. Yeah, they're so professional, and now they do it. The guys and girls here really I can't even fault them. But even when the ride breaks down, they get it going again quick.
Icon. Now, the ride operations on Icon have been fantastic this year. Really has been really good. Only one thing tripped them up this year for me, and that was the absolute lack of knowledge of their parent swap by the staff, and them just kind of going, I think that's more than just Icon, but in general they have been really, really brilliant.
Icon's operations were just amazing. It's the best operations I've ever seen at the Pleasure Beach. The enthusiasm, the efficiency, the professionalism of the team was there for all to see from the minute that Icon started testing. The trains were being sent out so fast when it was testing. You could see that the intent was there from the team straight away to sort of get used to sending the trains out quick so that they could keep the queue moving, so that they could just have the best throughputs on the park for the new ride. And you could see the enthusiasm. Even when you spoke to them before Icon opened, you could just see that they were so enthusiastic to work on it. And also as well, they had to do a lot of training to actually get onto Icon. They had to go through an assessment, they had to go to Europa Park, had to be trained by Europa and Mac. It's just such a big process for them to get on Icon in the first place, and then once they were on it, they did a great job, and that just carried on all season. So yeah, for me, the operations on Icon were just stunning, out of this world, better than any of us could have expected, and an absolute pleasure to meet the people who worked on Icon all year. Not only were they efficient, not only were they professional, they were friendly, they were decent people, and I really hope to see them back at the Pleasure Beach in 2019.
So the Wicker Man ride operations, sadly let down by reliability as much as anything. Just seems to break down a lot, and I think it's been resolved to a point, but it does still have its downtime, which is a shame, because when it does run as it's supposed to, yeah, its throughput's great. Rather like Icon, it keeps going. The staff are well drilled, even when they have problems with the restraints, which they have a lot. Again, the rides just seems to let it down there, but the staff are great on there.
At the start of the season, it was quite shaky on the towers and the Wicker Man. A couple of times there at the start of the season, there were a number of breakdowns and things like that, which didn't worry you at the start of the year, because obviously the ride was ready well in advance of the season, and obviously that been testing it for ages, and then suddenly I came to ride opening, and it was just like a couple of times I was queuing like over an hour for it, only to get evacuated out the queue line due to issues. But since then, like the last couple of times I've been to the park, it's been running 3 trains, and it's again been fast moving. That might be because they've not had that many fast passes on the ride this year, which has certainly helped the actual main queue line move a lot better than some of the other rides there. But operations wise, it started a bit slow this year on the towers, but I think it's got better and better as the season's gone on. And by my last visit the other week, I think it was running as it wanted to. We had one train was on the brake run, or entering the brake run, as the other one was halfway up the lift, which is, for a ride on 3 trains, is almost perfect.
Wicker Man obviously hasn't had the best operations at the start. It was down a lot, it's been really inconsistent, which for a GCI is kind of like, well, why? But no, the park has worked on that, and throughout the whole season, you know, I've been seeing it become more reliable. I've seen operations become much better, and overall it seems like the park have got used to running Wicker Man and got used to doing it. So now Wicker Man's operations are really good as well. They're pumping the trains out, they're doing it quickly, and that's really what you want to see.
Operations wise, I think it falls down a little bit there. The trains are slow to get dispatched. Often there's a problem with the restraints, which makes the queue stop and start. It's not a continuously moving queue, so you get a bit bored stood in the queue line.
So reliability was a bit of an issue to start with, and of course that impacts on the ride operations, because then you start seeing reduced capacity because of reliability and stuff like that. But it's something over time that Alton Towers were able to sort out, and I think as the year progressed and we got to the summer, Alton Towers were doing a cracking job with the ride operations. The Wicker Man, I think the staff were doing great, and even though I've actually heard someone ask why does it run on 3 trains instead of 2, they asked that because they didn't like the stacking on the brake run. I don't have a problem with the stacking on the brake run. I'd rather be sat on the train on the ride than stood in the queue, and I think most people would have that same opinion.
My thoughts on Wicker Man. Operations were okay. Not brilliant, but not as bad as I've seen on other rides at Towers. But you expect that on the new ride for it to be better. It just felt slow, and the way that you packed into the pre-show and everything just didn't seem to work very well, and then you were still waiting by the time you got in the station, and then there just felt like a lot of sitting about, and then at the end of the ride there feels like a lot of sitting about. It just doesn't flow very well, so the operations felt quite bad because of that. It's maybe better than it feels, but because of all that waiting around, it just doesn't feel great.
So I'll be completely honest, I can't really comment on the ride operations of Wicker Man, as it has consistently broken down before I've gone on it. There's been a lot of problems with Wicker Man, and it's so unfortunate because of how good it is. But it is by far the most unreliable coaster to hit the UK in a long time. So like I said, I can't really comment on the ride operations. The queues are long, always long. I mean, it's a popular coaster, but you'll be queuing well over an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, depending on how the day is. Oh, the Wicker Man theming, it is in a league of its own, really. I think Wicker Man, the theming is the best aspect about the old coaster, really. It is taking a leaf out of the big companies' books, such as Disney, Universal, Europa Park, Fantasyland, all the best theme parks in the world, and it's almost on those levels. And in some respects, it probably is on those levels. But you know what? I just think Wicker Man is astonishing for its theming, and it is the best theme coaster in the UK. Period.
So, what about the theme of the Wicker Man?
Oh, it's stunning. It looks stunning. You know, they've not left anything out with the theme, and it's absolutely cracking. And especially, it's the same as Icon at night. It just looks amazing.
Fantastic. It's one of the most immersive themed rides we've got in the UK. So, 10 out of 10 for that. Love the pagan look, is that the right word, pagan? I love the Wicker Man franchise, the Wicker Man film, the original one with Edward Woodward and forgotten the guy who played, Christopher Lee, who played Dracula, obviously not in Wicker Man. Such a great film that, so to have a Wicker effigy along those lines, I thought it was a great theme. A bit dark, I suppose, for a family ride, but who cares, it's really good.
I'm a big fan of the Wicker Man theme. I think it's really a unique theme and not one that many other parks or kind of attractions have covered, so big thumbs up there. I love the big structure. I thought, you know, going into it, towers are always like their big structures, and I thought that this one was going to be really big, but then there wouldn't be much theming elsewhere, which I was proved wrong. The station's fantastic inside. The pre-show is great. There's some theming elements in the queue line. The queue line isn't just a big cattle pen, which is great. I mean, that's the same for Icon. It's the queue line runs alongside the ride, like Wicker Man, and it really kind of sets you up to riding the attractions.
Big Bob, the Wicker Man structure is absolutely stunning. A lot of people thought during the construction that would be the only highlight of the ride, but the ride itself would really be excellent without a theme. It'd be a great coaster even if it wasn't themed, but the Big Bob structure definitely adds something to it. The flames definitely add something to it. The flames are amazing. The fact that they're actually real, it's just brilliant, because a lot of people weren't sure if they were going to be real or not.
Theme, not to my liking, but it is fairly well done. The pre-show is really good, but I feel like outside of that, other than the Big Bob or whatever he was called, he's good, but outside of that there's not much else. It doesn't flow out around too well. It looked really good on some of the videos from the early nights that were done when it opened, because you had a lot going on, but when that's not going on, it's quite bland right outside the ride. After you come out the shop and everything, it's just a bit dull. It doesn't fade out much, it's just, that's it, it's done.
It's an incredibly themed coaster. It's probably the best themed coaster in the UK. I don't think there's anything else that's even anywhere near it in terms of the level of theming on the ride.
What can I say? The theme of the Wicker Man is brilliant. I mean, saying that you could plonk the coaster in a car park and it'd still be an excellent coaster, but I think the theme really adds to it. Pre-show's good. I love the mist effects around the Wicker Man structure. When the fire's on, it's even better. I think the Bjornen are great when they're knocking about. We had some really good interaction with them earlier in the year. So yeah, theme, yeah, really good. But again, it doesn't detract from the fact that the coaster would be a great coaster on its own.
Icon's been criticised for its theme, or lack of. What's your thoughts on it?
I'm usually the thing where I'm not that fussed about themes and rides. I spent my youth coming onto Blackpool Pleasure Beach, so I'm very much used to the idea that, well, here's a ride, and you go on it. But
yeah.
I agree there isn't a theme overall, but the whole area, the Dunner Plaza and the entranceway, it's just a nice area of the park. You feel like you're in a different theme park at times to the rest of the Pleasure Beach, the way it's been realised by Amanda Thompson and her team. So I'd say when people say there's a lot of theme,
I think the word Pleasure Beach used was stylerised, something along those lines. I've never heard that phrase before, but
I think it's been invented.
Yeah, me too.
It's a very cromulent word, but no, I think the whole area around the ride, it's just been realised really well. They've had an idea, they didn't want to do a wacky theme on it, like the ride's a snake or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I was going to let the ride hardware speak for itself. I just make the area look as nice as it can, and that's what they've done, and I think it's a really nice thing that they've done.
I like its styling, it's very sleek, it looks very good. I like the colour scheme. I'm not massively bothered about theming myself. Like, I'll take it or leave it. I'm not overly bothered. But yeah, in general, I think it looks really sleek. Last night we were riding it at night, looks fantastic. So yeah, no, I like it. It's good, very good.
So personally, I'm a big sucker for massive theme kind of rides and experiences, but I do love what they have done with Icon. I think it looks very slick, looks very modern, lots of gold, it looks very rich, and I just think it's got a nice kind of attractive look to it. When you go to the station, it's kind of like walking into, like, you know, a 5-star restaurant. You're like, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money, but it's going to be a very good meal. That's what it's like. And the trains as well. I love the snakeskin trains. I know a lot of people are like, you know, snakeskin, but I think they look really nice, and I think it just looks really nice. So, yeah.
The overall kind of aesthetics of the ride, you know, it's not themed but stylized, as Amanda Thompson said. I really like the stylization. Inside the station is fantastic. It's really, really well done. The soundtrack is great. Outside the station is good. It's not as great, and the general area around Icon, you know, with the shop and all that, is fantastic also. They've done a really good job with kind of like the stylization and how it's presented. I'm glad that they put more effort into it. You know, it's not just plonked in there. They really thought about why and where it was going to go.
Well, obviously it's nowhere near as good as Wicker Man. It's quite stylised though, the Japanese styling, I really like that. Those wooden gates where you enter the queue line, they're fantastic, I love that. The station, yes, it looks a bit like a shoebox. A lot of people have criticised that, but with the styling on the side, I think it's not too bad. Within the station itself, I really like that. With those mirrors on the walls, that's great.
I prefer to say that Icon is styled rather than themed. I think because of where it is, it's in the middle of an amusement park, it's in the middle of Blackpool, well, not in the middle of Blackpool, but it's in the middle of the pleasure beach. It's surrounded by the Big One, Infusion, Avalanche, Big Dipper. It would look ridiculous if it was like Disney-esque themed, if it had some big theming on it. It just wouldn't fit in at all. But I think with the way it's done, the way it's styled, it just fits. It just works perfectly for what it is. And I think with Pleasure Beach being an amusement park and not being somewhere that does go mad on the theming, I think we got quite a good deal with Icon in terms of just how far they went with the styling of the station, of the trains, and everything that they did style. The station from the outside doesn't look particularly great, but on the inside, is there a station in the UK that looks better on the inside? I'm not so sure there is. I think the only thing you could be really critical about is probably the exit, but again, it doesn't spoil the ride for me. I'm not the kind of person that looks for theming to be a big part of a ride, so for me, the styling is just fine, especially given it's in Blackpool Pleasure Beach.
It's generally alright. There's too many gaps in it. For example, right at the back, in the second half of the ride, in that corner behind, well, in that corner of Big Dipper, it's just empty. You go through all that, they've done all the different bits here and there, and then that bit's just dull and empty and looks half finished. But most of it looks alright. It is fairly well done. Not too much more to say on that, really.
It's kind of... I'm going to walk backwards. Is this a good idea, walking backwards? It's... I think it's compared to other things at the Pleasure Beach, it's pretty well themed or styled. It's not the most highly themed ride in the world, but they did a good job with it. I don't think it needs to be heavily themed. It doesn't. I don't think loads of theming everywhere would add much to the ride.
Theme doesn't really have one, but it doesn't really need one either. Rather than a theme, I'll talk about a setting.
Yeah.
Because the settings, I think, is fantastic. The whole area looks brilliant. Shop looks fantastic. The queue line's brilliant.
The audio.
Yeah, audio is unbelievably good. It's such a great soundtrack all over the area, and that's even from like some opening weekend and late last year when they started to play around here. It just generated such a buzz for the ride.
Yeah.
So on to my favourite part of it, which would be launch 2. The second launch is absolutely brilliant. I love the second launch. It's so forceful. I've yet to get the elusive rollback launch on it. But
hopefully soon.
Hopefully one day.
Hopefully next year.
Yeah. But yeah, the second launch is brilliant. As for a worst part, I don't know if I've really got one.
Best part is that.
Yeah.
The second launch into the Immelman. Love that bit.
Perfectly timed, that was.
Yeah. Worst part, maybe the last couple of little S-bends before the brake run kind of meanders a little bit.
Yeah.
Feels like it's lost a bit of the speed sometimes.
The best part of the ride is the second launch, especially when the mist is on. I prefer the smoother launches rather than just a from still and straight to speed. I prefer the gradual. I think it fits really well for Icon. It's just generally a good part of the ride. The worst part is very easy for Icon. Very easy. I hate that coming over to the second launch, from coming back from Steeplechase over, and you've got that horrible, whatever we're calling it this week. I've noticed everyone seems to call this the inline roll that's really slow and it's just painful and horrible. I know they didn't have many choices for that, but that is just the worst part of the ride. And I think you forget how alright the first part was, because you come to that, and then that's horrible, and then you get to the second launch and that's really good. But that bit is just horrible for me.
The best part of Icon, for me, is the airtime hill through the big one, but it is closely followed by the second launch in the Immelman. I think the airtime hill through the big one is just about the best part for me, purely because of the airtime. Admittedly, I did think it'd go over there a little bit faster than it does, but I think it takes it just the right speed, because you get the ejector airtime, you get the near miss going through the big one, and it does scare a lot of first time riders. It scares people who've been on it before as well. So for me, that's the best element, but the Immelman's actually a lot better than I expected it to be. When I was watching it testing, I thought the Immelman would be quite painful. I mean, I've complained about other rides and being quite sore because of hang time on my thighs, but actually it's really enjoyable, especially on the back row and the right seat. I always find that really, really enjoyable.
One of the best bits, well, there's quite a few of them, but if I pick one out, it's got to be the second launch into the Immelman loop. That's fantastic. I really love that. I do like the top hat at the start, but not quite as much as I like that launch into the Immelman. What don't I like about the ride? Second part of the ride after the Immelman, and those S-bends as you're coming into the brake run, they're boring and could do without them. If I'm being really honest, I think I was a little disappointed with Icon. I thought that the launches were going to be more powerful. I didn't expect that end bit to be as boring. It's a little bit of a letdown when you've been on Helix, I think. That's the problem I've got.
So the worst part of Icon is definitely the inline twist just before the second launch. That is just... I understand from seeing the planning and hearing people talk about the planning and speaking to a lot of people involved with the project that they didn't really have much choice than to put that section of track there. It was probably the only way they could get it back to where they were going and through the big one without making changes to the big one structure. So I understand why it's there, I just don't like it.
For me, the best part is the ejector airtime hill in the second half of the layout. I love that. It's a fantastic, element there. The worst part for me is probably coming from underneath Steeplechase and going into the Heartline, Inline, Zero G roll, whatever you want to call it. It's a bit slow kind of going into it. Obviously the inline twist is great when it's slow, and that's something that's really cool, but the kind of element towards it is a bit kind of but no, I really like Icon.
The best part of Icon for me, if I could say the entirety of the second half, I think the second half is really good. I think it's great, actually. I mean, the feeling you get when you come out of the Immelman is quite euphoric, And then you get some nice mixes of forces, and you get probably the better pops of airtime around that section. As for the worst part of Icon, I've got to put it down to the incline loop after the initial top hat. I think it's a big pace killer, and I think in general the first half is kind of lacking compared to the second half in general. But I've put it down to the incline loop as that kind of dead spot within the layout that I don't really get anything out of. I just wish they kind of sacked it off, or even just put like a normal vertical loop to keep the intensity going. And yeah, I just think the incline loop's probably the weakest part for me.
Best part, it's probably that airtime mill right there.
Yep.
I'd say it's one of those ones where obviously we all saw the CGI footage 18 months before the ride opened, and it all looks quite good. But just quite surprised by the amount of pops of airtime there are throughout the ride. And the one coming out right behind me as well, coming down into the second launch, you just weren't expecting that coming onto the ride. So I think the airtime has been my biggest fan of the ride and the most surprising aspect of it as well.
Excellent.
And I think the worst part, I would say worst, is from what I was looking forward to when the ride was first announced. I think it was the high five element, the big dipper, and it just, especially during the day, it just doesn't seem to take it that much pace whatsoever. So you feel like it sort of runs flat last few yards of the ride, sadly.
Next part for me, second launch, you go through the Edelman, down, and it's the little airtime hill.
Yeah.
That's one of my favourite parts on the ride, and I really like the second launch as well.
Excellent. What about worst part?
Worst part, we're coming up to it now. It's the twist.
Oh, the zero G or inline twist.
I don't like that.
The best part of the Wicker Man is a difficult one, because the first drop's good, obviously going through Big Bob's good. I think all of it's good. I think it's a really good coaster, but if I had to really pick out one point that is the best, it would definitely be the bit after the first drop, where it's a bit of a double sort of down. It's hard to explain sat here in my living room, but I'm sure you know which part I mean. It's kind of like a double down drop, but that's probably my favourite part. The worst part of the Wicker Man for me is probably the lack of anything going on as you approach the brake run. As you approach the station. As you come into the brake run, it's pitch black. You get a couple of puffs of light and smoke effects, but I know Alton Towers wanted to do more with that area, and again, it's something we may see change next year, so it's a bit of a watch this space moment. But for me, that's the only criticism I've got of the Wicker Man, so it can't be a bad coaster.
Very fast paced. It's a great wooden. I'm a steel person rather than a woody person, but I love the Wicker Man. It's the first GCI coaster I've been on, so that's fantastic. The trains are brilliant. The ride, it's hard to pick out a really good point on the ride, to be honest. It's all round about the same. The worst bit, I can easily pick out the worst bit. That's that sort of boring corner, the unbanked turn. I don't like that at all. It doesn't do much for me. To me, the drops are not quite steep enough. There's not enough airtime. Little pops of airtime for sure, but there's not enough airtime. I like a lot of airtime on a coaster, and the coaster is far too short. I get off there thinking, is that it?
I know I just said the theming is the best part, but if we're talking about the actual roller coaster experience, I'd probably say it would be the second drop. It's kind of like a double down S-bend section. It's what John Wardy came along, adjusted and made his mark on the ride. He kind of produced a load of force around the first bank turn, and as you kind of dip down and twist around, you get some amazing zero-G airtime. I think that is probably the best part of the coaster for me. As for the worst part of the layout, I'd actually say the brake run at the end. And I know it sounds a bit stupid, but given the consistency of everything before it, with the theming and the ride experience and the pre-show and the station, you're kind of just left in like a dark room, and then you get like mist kind of spat at you, and it's I don't know, it just doesn't live up to the rest of the coaster, and it's just the brake run, so honestly it's not a massive deal. So
the best bit of the ride for me is definitely kind of like the second drop where you bank right and then left. I love that element. It's super snappy, super quick, and it just throws you about. The worst part, which I imagine is for most people the same, which is kind of like the flat turn, but saying that, it's not too bad. It's a dead space in the ride, but at least you get to look at the Wicker Man structure from afar and really take it all in.
Best part, I have to say, like the triple down first, the first section, the first of the ride. I think it's by far the best part. It picks up a lot more pace than you were expecting from when you saw all the ideas and plans of the ride. As well as that, there's the whole thing, we've got to build sound tunnels because of the noise, but even they add to the experience, the way you start the first drop in darkness, come out and then go back in over the airtime hill, and when you watch it off ride, the smoke's coming out as well. Again, it looks great, and it's a really good ride. But yeah, the trickle down the start is by far the best part of the ride for me.
Worst part?
The boring, the so-called boring corner towards the end of the ride after you've gone through the Wicker Man the first 2 times.
Best part for me, first drop, you go over the little hill, and then you go down, you go round to the right, and then dive down to the left. That is my favourite part on that ride. That is ridiculous. Especially you get into the afternoon when the things run in, and the speed you get going down there is just mad. Brilliant.
Worst part?
That corner, you go up, you just kind of go around that corner, and it's just...
Everyone has said that corner.
That corner. Bank it. Why is it not banked?
The best part of it is... it's probably the first drop. The rest of it's... yeah, it would have to be the first drop, I think. The best part. The worst bit... I can't really choose a part of the ride to be the worst bit because it's all a bit samey. There's no standout bit of the ride for me, so I would have to say the very end of the ride, when you go into the empty shed. It's a bit dull and just, it's such a poor ending to the ride considering so much was put into the pre-show. There's just not enough there. It does feel incomplete.
Best is the S-bend drop into that, the speed in there, and as you kick onto the bank turn first time through the Wicker Man structure. Yeah, I love that bit. Worst bit, it's kind of, I don't know actually, maybe the flat turn. Sometimes you can get a bit of a slow run around there on the flat turn.
Favourite part of it, I think, is probably the pass-throughs of the Wicker Man. I do really like them, especially with the mist effects. Especially the other week, you may have seen our Scarefest vlog where the mist was on just insane mode. I don't know if they'd done that intentionally or what, but if they did, it was brilliant.
Kettle had boiled, I think.
Yeah, really had.
It's a big kettle, like, but
it's a massive bloody kettle. The only weak point, or the only down point, is just the tunnel at the end. If you do stack, which happens fairly regularly, that tunnel at the end just needs something in it other than a bit of smoke. Just to, I think it's just misses something. That's how I'd improve it.
Icon, it's alright overall. It's not a brilliant ride. Again, like the Wicker Man, it was the ride that they needed. It's probably the perfect ride that the park needed. It was something different. It fits in all the right gaps that it needed to, but for me, it's alright. It's not bad, it's not brilliant, but it's alright. Nothing much more to say there, but both rides were the rides that both of the parks needed. They've done a good job on most things around both of the rides. So not much more to say on that.
Taking reliability aside, I think as an overall ride experience, Wicker Man is amongst the best in the country, definitely. I love the fact that it's a wooden coaster. I mean, we haven't had a wooden coaster for a long time in the UK, and I hope it kind of continues this trend or starts it off. I just think the theming, the overall package, the ride experience, it's just second to none. I think it's just, in my opinion, a fantastic, solid family coaster, and I can't really fault it other than the reliability side of it. So Wicker Man, yeah, I love it.
So, which is better, Icon or the Wicker Man? Putting
Definitely
everything
Icon.
in. Definitely Icon.
The Icon, yeah. And I think that's the actual coaster.
Yeah.
The actual coaster's better, and for me, I've made no secret of the fact that the coaster's more important, generally speaking, than a theme.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't mean Wicker Man's a bad coaster. By no means is it a bad coaster, it's fantastic, but it's just not quite the same as Icon.
Overall, Icon or Wicker Man?
See, I refused to commit to this on Twitter the other day, but a push is probably you can't argue that Icon's a better coaster than Wicker Man, I think.
Fair enough.
So, but overall, I love both of them, and I think it's fantastic. We've had 2 rides of that kind of level open in the UK this year. It's just great for the industry in general.
Overall, which is better, Icon or Wicker Man? For me, it's an obvious one. You all know the answer. It's Icon. Icon, the best coaster in the UK, but the Wicker Man is very close behind it. If I was basing them purely on theming, obviously the Wicker Man would win, but I'm going on the ride, the coaster itself, and for me, Icon wins all day long. It's a better coaster in my opinion, but that takes nothing away from the Wicker Man, because I think the Wicker Man is an excellent roller coaster, and I think we've done really well in the UK to get 2 amazing new coasters to open at the same time, pretty much. Same year, same country. Us UK enthusiasts have been truly spoiled in 2018, and I really hope it's not long until we've got 2 of our big hitters opening 2 big coasters again. That might happen soon, you never know.
It's a great ride for Blackpool, and I would put it as the best ride in the UK, even better than Stealth, and that's saying something for me because I loved Stealth. Anything else I want to say about it? I think, yeah, definitely it beats Wicker Man simply because I like steel coasters rather than wood, and it's a more forceful coaster, whereas I don't feel that force so much on Wicker Man, although it's that fast pacey ride.
Icon or the Wicker Man, which is better for you?
I might be biased because I'm standing right next to it, but I think I'd have to say Icon. I think when you look at both of them just as the rides, I think Icon is the better ride experience, full stop. It's more fun to ride. The Wicker Man is, for me now, possibly the most fun ride at Alton Towers, and it's a great experience. But having spent the last month going around different parks in Europe, I've rode a lot of GCI wooden roller coasters, and I'd have to say the Wicker Man is the worst of them, which is why I'd say Icon's the better ride. I think it's a better ride. When you rank them for the UK alone, I think Icon, you could argue, is in the top 2 or 3 rides in the country, whereas Wicker Man might be the better low top 10, I'd say.
Yeah.
But I'd say just about Icon is the better ride of the 2.
Excellent, thanks John.
No worries.
Do you know what? At the start of the year, I would have confidently said Icon. I still say it's Icon, but that is not to say that the Wicker Man is not a good coaster. It's a bloody fantastic coaster.
So, no faults with either Wicker Man or Icon really. Love them both. I think they're both great rides, and for me they're very close to each other. I would say that Wicker Man is just a tiny bit better than Icon for me. I'm a big fan of theming and all that kind of thing. I think Wicker Man's atmosphere is fantastic, especially when the fire's going, and especially at night. That ride is insane at night. And for me, it's kind of the pre-show, the quality theming, the atmosphere, all of those things help to push Wicker Man above Icon. Only slightly though, very, very slightly. Obviously, Icon has the much stronger layout, the much stronger kind of physical ride. It's got a better mixture of elements. It's got more airtime. But again, for me, it's the overall attraction, and Wicker Man is just that little bit better. But both of them are fantastic, and that's the main point to take away. The UK, we're very lucky to have 2 brand new awesome rides, and I'm very happy that I've got the chance to ride them. So that's been it from my thoughts. Thank you for watching.